I love you, but be so for real. The idea that addiction has only one type of person or a certain type that would get addicted is why so many people can't see it happening for themselves. But there is no one face of addiction. There is no point where you're too far gone to come back from it either. Today, I'm sitting down with Sara, who is a recovered addict, to talk about her experience with meth addiction from the ages of 14 to 21, what changed when she became a mom, and how she became a successful female solopreneur. Welcome.
Thank you. Thank you for having
Um,
me.
Before we get into it, yes, of course. Reminder to like, subscribe, follow at I Love You But Podcast, Instagram, TikTok, YouTube, Spotify, wherever you get your podcasts. I feel like your introduction in itself, I feel like I don't need to do too much but start asking the questions.
For sure.
Are you ready? How are you feeling?
Yeah, girl, let's get into
Okay.
it. I'm excited to be
So
here.
you were dealing, right? You were dealing with meth addiction between 14 to 21. What did that actually look like day to day for you since you were at such a young age?
Well, yeah, I mean, day to day, I would run away from home and I would find like random older men to live with and people who would supply me with the drugs. And so I would basically do that. I would like meet people, go start living with them, be, high every day. And then I would have like, it all kind of started with I would always have a warrant. I had like a minor in possession charge from like a weed charge when I was 13. And so when I would run away, I would miss court dates. I would always have these bench warrants. And so I would be using and then getting arrested as a runaway, getting arrested for having a bench warrant, going home, getting taken to rehab, getting taken to some sort of like program, being there for a short time, running away. So it was kind of that cycle for a really long time.
And how did it start? Was it like, because I feel like if I wanted to go do meth, I wouldn't know where I would even start right now. I'd be like, wait, so who do I go to? So, like, how did you get into doing meth? Was that like the first drug you tried, or was there like an escalation of like, oh, you started with this and then you just wanted a stronger and stronger high?
It was definitely an escalation. I mean, I always smoked weed, and I say always. I mean, I started smoking weed when I was like 13, and then, I ultimately, for me, I mean, I had no concept of self-worth at that time, so pretty much anything and everything went. Like whatever, if people were to be like, "Hey, do you want to try this?" I was always like, "Yeah, hell yeah, like let's do it." No matter what it was. So it kind of started with weed and, would try ecstasy, drinking. I didn't really like drinking though. I always would say like I'd rather smoke something that made me feel drunk. So I just always had this like urge to like do drugs to kind of disassociate and not be in the present moment. And the first time I ever tried meth, it was on New Year's Eve. I was 14. And I honestly don't even know how I ended up at the house that I was at, but I was at some weird house party, and that's just what people were doing. And I was like, let's do it.
Wow. So it was like a house party you were at with, I guess, like people that you knew from like smoking weed and stuff, or like people from
They were
school,
random
or
people. I don't
and
even
then
remember. I would just meet people and like go with them. And so, thank God, looking back at all the activities that I used to do, I'm really grateful that nothing horrible or like really, really horrible ever happened to me because I would just meet random people and they'd be like, "Want to get high?" And I'd be like, "Yeah, let's go." Like, and go to their house and like hang out with them. So, it was always like significantly older men generally, and then like random people.
like, okay, so basically you started at 13. Do you feel like there was a moment where you were like, okay, this is beyond experimenting to like this is a problem?
Yeah, I mean, pretty quickly, I think I realized it was a problem. I guess so, at that point in time of my life, It's not like I wanted it to be a problem, but I didn't give a shit. Like I was very much intentionally like not trying to be home, not trying to go to school, not trying to like live this mundane life of doing the same thing every single day. So I was almost like initially more addicted to like the chaos than I was the drugs. And then the drugs kind of came as I just continued to like get myself into situations like that, if that makes sense.
Yeah. Was there like, because a lot of times people are like, oh, this only happens if one, two, three happens to you in your life. Would you say it was like, oh, something happened at home and you were like, oh, I don't like home, so that's why? Or were you just like, oh, I kind of just like the feeling of the chaos? Like, I'm a young girl, like, this is fun.
It's interesting you asked that because social workers and like people when I was in and out of the juvenile system would always ask me that question, like, what is going on at home that you're running away and using drugs? Like, and no, I mean, I come from like a good suburban household, like a good family, and I never experienced anything at home. I will say that I think initially for me, what kind of started the drug behavior at such a young age is looking back on it. My parents, and not to blame them by any means, but my parents always would say that I was out of control. Like from a very young age, they would be like, you are out of control. I think just because I was very defiant, very strong, like personality, strong willed, it was difficult for me to be told what to do, you know? And so they would always tell me I was out of control. And so it was almost this like self fulfilled prophecy of like, I wasn't out of control, but I very quickly became out of control by them telling me that so many times.
Yeah, and I want to get into this a little bit later, but I think a lot of that happens to like girls who have ADHD undiagnosed, is like they're told like they're this, they're that, or why aren't you, maybe you do good in school because you're smart, but you may act up in school, like little things. And I think in
Absolutely.
general, like even when it comes to like weight and stuff, like I had cousins who were overweight and they told me like, because people called me fat, I kept eating. Like I did what people were saying that I was,
Yeah.
knowing that they were saying that. It like makes you turn into it.
I think
Where's that
especially as a
power in?
child, especially as a young, like when you're young, you know, if the people that are very close to you are telling you these things, I think it very much like feeds into the type of behavior that you display as you start to get older.
Exactly. And then so you had a turning point of like, okay, I'm gonna get sober. And you said like having your daughter changed everything. So were you 21 when you had her? And then what was like the aha moment?
Yeah, I mean, yes. So, and by that time, the addiction had really spiraled completely out of control. I was like shooting up meth by this point in time in my life, and it was really bad. And so, when I got pregnant, I actually had her like right before my 21st birthday. So, I got sober, I guess technically at 20, but I was almost 21. I ended up getting sober when I was in my third trimester. I got arrested when I was 15 weeks pregnant for a stolen car, and I was in jail. And I realized at that time, I it was not just the pregnancy that got me sober. Basically, it was the fact that I realized once I was in jail that I had been in the juvenile system so long that I knew if I didn't get sober, I was going to be in and out and in and out. And I knew that if I didn't get sober, I would have the baby in prison. And something about that is was my aha moment and made it click for me.
Wow. And like, I'm so glad there was that switch and that you still, at that point, had the chance to make a choice to be like, I'm not going to continue down this path. Because I see on like obviously the documentaries and stuff, like women who are in prison who have kids
Hmm.
and they take them kids away from them.
Hmm.
Um, like biologically, that's not
I
right,
can't
but
imagine.
I can't.
Yeah. And that was, and I'm so grateful for that moment for me because I mean, I know so many people who have had their kids taken away who don't get sober when they have babies and they lose everything or you know, they just continue in that life. I mean, everybody that I was hanging out with back then is still either in prison, dead. homeless or doing the same shit, you know? So I feel very grateful that I had that moment that just clicked for me. And I can't really speak to exactly what it was. You know what I mean? I just call it like my divine intervention because something genuinely just changed in my heart. And I've never wanted to use since then either, which is the most interesting part to me too. Like it hasn't been something that I struggle with all the time. Something just clicked and I was like, I'm done, which is wild.
Yeah, and I think like a lot of times people do kind of have that like initial part where it's like, oh my gosh, I still want to use it. And also sometimes people like struggle through that for the rest of their life of like still
Forever.
wanting to use even if they don't use again. So it's kind of like you said, like a divine intervention, like your relationship with a higher power and your love for your family at the same
Hmm.
time that seems like it's pushed you forward. And
Hmm.
then I remember you telling me you've never been a good employee. So you got out of being addicted. You have your
Hmm.
daughter now. You start to work like some regular jobs. What was that like for you? And like, what did being a bad employee look like?
Yeah. Well, yeah. So, I mean, initially, when I had her, she was 1.5, and I went to esthetician school. So, I became an esthetician when she was 1.5. I didn't work any jobs prior to that. The first kind of, I mean, not any jobs. I had jobs when I was like younger, but like after post addiction, when I had my daughter, I went to esthetician school and I worked at a couple different med spas. I mean, ultimately kind of the same shit as like I was experiencing with my parents. I don't like to be told what to do. So when, my boss would be like, you have to do things this way, I'd be like, I'm not going to do it. I'm going to do what I think makes sense because unless somebody can tell me like, I want you to do this and here's why, it has to logically make sense to me for me to be like, okay, I'm going to do that. Otherwise, I'm not going to do it. And so, I mean, I think I was a good employee in the sense that I performed well there. I had great sales, I had good relationships with my clients, but ultimately, when it came down to them trying to give me direction or them trying to tell me something that I had to implement, there was always heads butting with that.
Because like for me, I struggle with like I'm good at taking feedback. I love feedback. I'm always trying to like grow, change, develop, learn something new. But I'm
Totally.
not good at do this because I said to do it. Like if
Exactly.
you
Yeah.
give me feedback like, "Oh, you can increase your sales by 2 times if you change this word to this word."
Yeah.
Then
Then I'm
like
going to do it. Yeah.
yeah, but it's the whole like of an employer like you are doing something because they this way because they said it had to be done this way.
Yeah.
Um,
Or having
and
to
I
do
know we talked about
services.
it a little.
Oh, sorry.
No, go ahead, go ahead.
Oh, I was gonna say, or like having to do things that I just simply hate doing. Like for like, as an esthetician, there's just things like I hate waxing. And like we did waxing at the med spa I worked at. And we also did laser hair removal. So I'm like, don't book me waxing, like just book me the laser. Like, just doing things like that where it's like that was something that I was always having issues with if, of being told what to do or not having the freedom to kind of choose what I would like to do.
Mm-hmm. Exactly. And I know, like, for me, I found out that that is a symptom of ADHD and, like, not wanting to follow, like, reasonless direction. Like, I can follow direction if I respect you. Number one, it's like, I have to respect you.
Totally.
And you have to make it make sense. And I know you've never been formally diagnosed, but I wonder if some of your medicating that you were doing as a kid was really self medicating without realizing for like dopamine regulation issues, which is like what ADHD is.
Totally. Totally. Yeah. And I shared this with you before, but I mean, I have a few like different clients that have been diagnosed as an adult with ADHD women. And I definitely relate. Like we've kind of had at length conversations about like what that looks like how they knew, like what symptoms they have. And I feel like I definitely have ADHD, I think it would be probably in my interest to get diagnosed because I feel that for sure.
And I think so. What stuck out to me too when we were initially talking was you were specifically addicted to meth,
Hmm.
which a stimulant is a form of like Adderall is methyl something, whatever.
Yeah,
They're in the
yeah, yeah.
same family. They got the
It's an
same thing.
amphetamine. Yeah.
So I'm like, it's very interesting. You were like, huh, the drinking is you like the weed, fine, whatever. It was more about the chaos, but the meth was what really was for you. So I'm like,
Mhm.
in you saying that, I like did some research because I was like, there's got to be a connection here of like the meth, because like I take an amphetamine as my stimulant every day,
Mhm.
and you were doing the same thing. You just weren't medicated. You didn't know why you were doing it. And something that I saw was um, about 1 in 4 people with ADHD experience substance misuse at sometime in their life. And
Interesting.
like right, and then adolescents, like teens, 35% of them with ADHD have used substances versus 20% without ADHD.
Oh, that's an
So I'm
interesting
like,
statistic.
right? And I because
Hmm.
I was like, no, there's a connection. There has to be. And
It
especially
makes
because the
sense.
whole way that you were able to be like, oh, I don't want to do it anymore, because you weren't numbing necessarily. It was like you were trying to self medicate, regulate, because you
Hmm.
have a dopamine regulation thing going on.
Hmm.
And I was like, that's such an interesting statistic, because you know how women are underdiagnosed. I know you talked with some of your clients about that as well. And it's like, it could it literally could be deadly, because it's like there's 2 to 3 times higher a risk for a teen with ADHD of trying different drugs
Hmm.
than one without. Whereas, like, if they were diagnosed and given proper tools and resources, even if it's not medicine, but like, oh, these are things you can do to help with this. This is why you may be addicted to this chaos, because you're getting like that dopamine kick from the chaos. Like, because I heard you say, like, I like the chaos.
Hmm.
I still like some chaos. I'd be like, I need to be a little bit reckless
A little
today.
drama.
Like I'm an adult, so, and thankfully like a conscious adult, so it's like I know how to not have a reckless something with that's gonna damage me. But like sometimes I just need a little drama. I just need a little something, some gossip. Like tell me something juicy or something. So I feel that. And like to your point, it's like addiction doesn't have to mean like, oh, I got addicted because my parents were doing SA to me, whatever, whatever, and this and that and the third, like,
Hmm.
or I was piss poor broke and I never had nothing. Like, it doesn't have to be that. It could really be like women are neglected in the healthcare system, and children and girls are neglected in the healthcare system, and you was figuring it out because nobody
Totally.
else was figuring out. They were just sitting there calling you like, oh, you're acting like this, you're acting like that. But it's just because of like miseducation of all of us. Like we don't know. Like our parents didn't
Absolutely.
know. We're just now finding out. You know what I mean? So
Hmm.
it's not to say it's anybody's fault. It's, well, the healthcare system, I do think it's their fault. But
I was gonna say
like
somebody's at fault. Yeah.
it's not us, it's not the parents
Yeah.
per se. A lot of times it's that. And like, I don't know, like 35% of teens versus 20% is
It's a high
two
percentage.
to three.
Hmm.
That's a lot. And then like 1 in 4 would experience like substance misuse. Like that's a lot of
There's a lot.
people. So yeah, I just wanted to get your take on that, because I'm like, because I know I probably shouldn't say it, but I'd be like, oh, I got to take my meth today because it's an amphetamine. In the name of it,
Yeah.
it says like amphetamethol something, and I'm like, oh, meth. I have to take
Yeah.
my little prescribed dose. Let me remember to do that. So yeah, I'm like, and then I was like, okay, let me get research to support this, because I can't just be saying this and running my mouth, and then it's like, girl, no, she just liked the meth because she liked it. Don't have nothing to do with what you talking about. Now we also talked about how uh teens explore, because it still said 20% without the ADHD are exploring. That's 1 in 5. That's teens are still going to explore, but there's like a different kind of risk now with experimentation in a way that makes it more dangerous. What
Yeah.
do you think of that? And what would you say to like a 16-year-old who's like, oh, like it won't happen to me. I'm just doing what teenagers do. I'm doing what you did when you were a teenager.
Yeah, I mean it's a scary time with like the fentanyl epidemic that there is. I would say that because I know how it is to have that mindset as a teenager and you're like, "Oh, that shit, I'm untouchable. It's not going to happen to me like whatever." And so ultimately, like, it's a scary time. It's a scary time to like be experimenting because fentanyl is in like literally everything. And I'm in Colorado, so like weed's legal, dispensary, whatever. But I mean, I've seen stories where fentanyl's even in like weed edibles in different states and stuff. And so it just is, it's really scary. So I guess I would say to any, teenager who's curious is like, if you are going to experiment with drugs, like make sure either you have a Narcan, which like will save you if you overdose accidentally, or make sure that you have test strips, at least if you're going to do it, don't be stupid and ignorant to the fact that I mean, it only takes one time for that to kill you. And like how ridiculous, like you see stories all the time of kids, getting into stuff and then literally dying because it's an overdose of fentanyl. So I mean, it only takes that one time. So that would be my advice, is just like, if you're going to do it, don't be an idiot and make sure you either have test strips and test your shit, or have a Narcan to save your ass if you do.
I didn't know. I know about Narcan, but I didn't know there were test strips where you could test stuff. Is it like you can
Yeah.
get it at like a drugstore, like Walgreens,
I
CVS?
think you can literally get it on Amazon. But yeah, I mean, I'm sure like I haven't looked into like where like what retail places, but certainly Amazon. I know there's a lot of different like programs that typically like the states have. Like Colorado has some different like reduction of overdose. I can't think of any of the names, but programs like that where you can actually get the stuff for free. Um, but certainly on Amazon.
Okay, that's good to know. And I think like something else I think about is do it every time you buy a new supply, whatever it is, because
Every time. Even if you're
it doesn't
buying from the
matter
same
how
person
long
every
you've
single
been
time,
doing.
those people get
Yes,
bad bags. Those people might cut, like you never know. And that is the
you
thing,
never
is like
know.
you cannot trust it. Not today, not in this day and age. It happens too much. You hear too many stories. I mean, it's literally an epidemic. It happens all the time. It's tragic. So I think, yeah, you can never be too safe. And I think again, a teenager hearing this might be like, "Oh yeah, okay, like whatever." But ultimately, like, your life is too precious to be fucking around like that.
Yeah, and if you're gonna experiment, like do like take all the precautions to
Yeah.
experiment. Like if you're gonna do that, go it like because like I think I was saying before, like I know a lot of people who experimented with drugs when we were teenagers and they're fine. They're moms, they're business owners, nurses, doctors, like it's not to stigmatize it, it's more so like the dangers that exist today are very different. So I don't
Yeah.
want like you doing teenager things to turn into death or
Yeah.
I don't know, brain dead, all those types of things that can happen.
Yeah.
Do you think that because right now they're saying like, okay, Gen Z drinks so much more less than previous generations, um, and people try to connect it to saying addiction is getting better. Do you feel like from what you've seen, like I know you spoke about people that you used to know that are still incarcerated or homeless or addicted, do you feel like it's getting better and that like resources are truly getting better, or is it maybe just more hidden or
Mm,
changing like
I
how
mean, I
like
don't know about
really?
resources getting better. I would say, I mean, I don't know a lot of Gen Z that are like, but I would say the Gen Zs I see and like, or interact with in the world or whatever, they're all vaping. You know what I mean? Like I think that like those like vapes all the time. Like I can't even think of the names because I don't vape, but like, you know what I'm saying? Like everybody.
Yeah,
So
I don't
I
know the
do,
names either, but I know what you're talking about.
they're
Yeah.
out there. Everybody's always smoking them. And so, and obviously that's not getting you high, but it's an addictive substance. Like I definitely think that just because alcohol is on the decline, which is great, that there's other vices that are being utilized in its place, whether it be weed or nicotine or, I mean, I shared about like my divine intervention and like, finding sobriety from meth. It's not to say that I haven't had addiction. I have a very addictive personality. So even like with myself, I can overdo or find like different vices. I've leaned a lot on weed over the last 12 years or exercise or, you know what I mean? Even sometimes like food, even TV. I don't even watch TV really because when I watch TV, girl, I get like, I'm like watching a whole freaking like 7 series in like a week. Like I'm like it's unhealthy. Like the amount, so I'm like I think just because that the alcohol intake is going down, it's not to say that addiction is going down as a whole. I wish it was, but I just don't think
Hmm.
it is.
Exactly, because I feel like I don't think we've really meaningfully addressed as a society what addiction is in general. Because to your point, it could be to anything, why it
Anything.
happens in the human brain, why more people are more likely. Yes, they talk about the genes and stuff, but it's more than that. It's also like your brain regulation, dopamine regulation. You might be trying to use something to get a kick to get your dopamine up. It could be a bunch of things. I don't think we've really holistically addressed that um, as a society
Mm-mm.
to really make big progress.
I agree. I
Personally,
agree.
um, yeah.
Yeah, and it's an
And
interesting
then
topic because I mean, to your point about it being literally anything, like there's that show My Strange Addiction. Have you heard of that? Like some people are addicted to
yes,
like eating drywall. You know what I mean? Like weird shit that like there it has to be something in the brain. It'd be something really fascinating. I know that there's people out there that study it at length. I think it is a very fascinating thing, addiction.
it is, and I think like the first step is like destigmatizing it
Mhm.
because there is, like to your point, a lot of research. There's people who are working in the field, but I think the stigma of it holds us back because then people do things behind closed doors.
Mhm.
You can't really help people that are doing it behind closed doors outside of like having Narcan available for overdoses. But yeah, I think removing the stigma and like understanding that like addiction is kind of part of the human brain a little bit. Because to your point,
Mhm.
you said exercise, you could become addicted to exercise. I know a girl who like she had an alcohol problem and she replaced the alcohol when she was trying to get sober with running, and like
Mhm.
she would run every day to the point where her knees were like brown, black, and blue because she couldn't stop. Like that was what was keeping her from the other addiction.
Yeah.
So I think like we don't really talk about that enough is like addiction doesn't always have to be a drug either,
Mhm.
to your point. So yeah. So you're an entrepreneur. You
Mhm.
wasn't going to work for nobody because that just wasn't going to work out. Um, you started your own business, and you talked about how like having multiple streams of income is important to you.
Mhm.
Why do you think it's important, not just for you, but like for women in general, to have multiple ways of getting money?
Well, I'll touch on why it was important for me and then women in general. Because obviously, so for myself, I am a solo entrepreneur esthetician. I have a solo med spa. And I love being my own boss. I love what I do. I love my clients, all the things. But last year, I got pregnant with my second baby. And, it hit me when I was pregnant that I was like, damn, like I love all this, but like, as an entrepreneur, as a solo provider, I'm not going to have any benefits. I don't have a paid maternity leave. I even be able to take maternity leave? And then of course, when I have a baby, I'll want to work less, but like, how will I supplement that income? So for me, I started an additional online business that, has allowed me to take that maternity leave, restructure my hours. I actually go back to work next week, but like, I'm able to really scale back thanks to the additional income stream that will eventually like produce passive income. But I think, yeah, I think it's really important as people, not even just as women, but especially as women, because in regards to like, for the women that do want to have babies, even like in the corporate world, like maternity leave is only, I guess, I don't know, I've never worked in the corporate world, but I know you're not getting like months and months and months at a time, it's like 6 weeks, a couple weeks. I think when you and I spoke, you told me that some businesses are only required to provide 2 weeks, and I didn't know that. I could not imagine having to go back.
Yes, yeah.
Yeah, I can't imagine having to go back to work at 2 weeks postpartum. You're still healing. Like, I didn't even get out of bed hardly for the first 2 weeks after this baby. Like, so I think having to rely solely on only one source, whether it's your job, whether it's your business, whether it's like whatever the income source is, having only that source is, I don't want to say crippling, but like it's scary because even if you have a secure job, it's not secure. Like you could get fired, you could like whatever happens. So it's like having multiple streams, I think, is crucial for survival, especially this day and age and this economy. Like, the more money we need to be able to survive.
Exactly. And I think something that like our parents' generation wasn't taught that's now becoming obvious is working for the same employer for 20 years and giving your all so that you can get this pension and you retire and you get to live like that's not our reality. I could work for
No,
the
and it
same
makes me
company for
sick to even think
20,
about
30
it.
years and it's not going to happen. Like I'm not going to get the payoff that you got. And I'm
Mm-mm.
happy that you got your payoff, but me right here, it's not going to happen. Like it's not happening for our generation in that same way. So we have to come up with ways. And it's not to say like some people who have the brain to be in corporate America and stay in there shouldn't do it, but it's like you also have to realize you're a number. You may have people there that care about you, but the company itself as an entity, you're a number. And if they want to get rid of you, they're going to get rid of you
100%.
respectfully,
100%.
disrespectfully. So that's what I'm like. You have to know, like, okay, well, I kind of had this in the back tuck. I can, put more into this now that I'm looking for another job or whatever the case may be. Doesn't
Mm-hmm.
matter. Like I think people think, oh, well, if I'm good at corporate and I have that and it's stable, you're still relying on an outside entity for
Mm-hmm.
your, which is fine, but you should just have that other skill, that other little side thing that you could do and rely on to support yourself. And if you have a family, your family, um, in the case that they decide that they got to cut some people loose,
Exactly. That's what I was gonna
which
say.
is
I'm
what
like,
happens with a lot of these like.
yeah, and it is because it's like, people think like, oh, my steady paycheck is steady income, it's stability. But again, like you said, at any given time, people could do layoffs. Something could happen within the company could be sold, and then, they're taken over. And again, like there's so many unknowns in today's world that I'm like relying just only, even as like a solo entrepreneur. If you get injured or get pregnant or just decide that you want to take a few months off because you're burnt out, like whatever it is, having something to fall back on is, I think it's mandatory.
Right. I feel like and then like the piece about like being a woman, it just makes it so much more important because I just don't ever want to be in a position where it's like I'm having a kid and I feel like I have to be torn apart from my kid before I'm ready. But like I want
Mhm.
it to be my choice. Whether you choose to do it in 2 weeks, 4 weeks, 6 weeks, whatever your choice is, I would like it to be like the woman's choice, not the employer's choice.
Yeah,
Um,
and not based out of like because you don't have the money, so you have to go back to work. You know what I mean? Because that is such, I
Yes.
like that feeling. I can only imagine, like, I can only empathize with women who have experienced that, are experiencing that, because it's like, again, with the economy and just having to make sure that we have the money to survive. Like, so you're like, damn, I'm only 3 weeks postpartum, but I have to go back to work because I can't afford not to. Like, that is such a scary place to be.
Exactly. And like having a tiny human relying on you as well. Now,
Yeah.
you've like been able to build yourself up, come out of addiction. You were incarcerated at one point, to having a brick and mortar business and a high ticket sales online business.
Hmm.
Would you believe, do you think that like if you have the right support, if you have the right purpose, that anyone can get out of addiction?
Yeah. I mean, yes, I do think anybody can get out of addiction. I don't think that it's always like a cakewalk, you know what I mean? But I do believe that ultimately, if people want to, they can. That's, I think, what it boils down to is the people, anybody experiencing addiction, you have to first have the desire to want to change, because even if you have a great support system, even if you have all these amazing opportunities, if you ultimately don't want to or aren't ready to in your heart, like, you won't. But if you have that reckoning and that like realization of like, well, damn, I can't live like this anymore, if where there's a will, there's a way.
Do you think there was anything that anyone could have said to you that would have made you have that aha moment faster? Or do you think it really has to come
No.
from like within?
It has to come from within. I mean, having been in rehabs literally in and out my whole life, I was in so many court ordered like programs, rehabs, different programs, AA, NA, all the things, like, because I was court ordered to be there, and none of it ever did a single thing for me until I had the moment where I was like, damn, I have to be done. And I mean, I even know one of my very best friends, um he's had a really hard time. Like, he's one of the ones that's still incarcerated, and I know that some people, it's not as simple as just, I want to be done and then they're done. He's a great example where, like, I know that in his heart he's wanted to be done many times, but he's somebody that really struggles with that and has gone back to that life, time and time again, and then is ready again and then goes back. So I don't think it's always just this like linear path. I think sometimes for people it's very much like, an up and down thing. But I do believe that it is possible.
And then like for the people who kind of have that non-linear path of like they do have, like you said, the desire from within to want to change, but they may have a relapse or go back and forth, what would you say to them, and what do you think is one thing they can do to make it stick better, maybe their next try around?
It's hard for me to say what I think could make it stick better, um, for somebody else, but what I would say is that there's so much more life to be lived on the other side. Like, sometimes you get so lost in what you're going through and what you're experiencing, and maybe you have so many things. Like, when you come out of addiction, there's so many things you have to do, like, for example, like, I don't know, like, get a driver's license, like, do just, there's so many boxes you have to check just for like to handle regular life shit, especially if you've found yourself in like a pile of like shit that you've created. You have to right a lot of wrongs, and that can feel impossible. But just putting one foot in front of the other and focusing on small tasks at a time. But ultimately, once you're able to get some time and get sober and get kind of through that initial like shit pile, there's just so much more to life to be lived. That's really like the biggest thing, because I remember feeling so hopeless and thinking that I would never get out of addiction, and that I was going to be, shooting up meth and maybe be a porn star, like whatever. Like, that's really what I believed. And now having my girls and a great husband and my businesses and just being able to travel and go to good restaurants and like just really experience life. Like there's just so much more to live for. So that's really my message.
I love that message because it's like your life isn't over because you got addicted or had a relapse. It's like it's an opportunity to live the rest of your life. Like every day you wake up is an opportunity
Yeah.
to
And there's just
change
so much
and to
more.
see the
Like
other
there's
side.
so much more to live for than being in weird basements with weird people or motels or like, whatever, like wherever you're at, like in your addiction, like and a lot of times too, of course, like it feels like that is like the best, like whatever you're doing, but it's like, there's just so many more experiences that are to be experienced. So and that are so much better.
Mhm. And do you think if you could say something to 14-year-old you right now, what would you say to her?
What would I say? I would say, man, that it gets better, you know, that all the struggling and I mean, yeah, just that. I mean, that alone, that it gets better. And I would just show her my life. Like if 14-year-old, 16-year-old, 19-year-old me could see anything, like I think they just would bawl. Like that question even just makes me a little bit emotional because again, like I never thought I would be where I am. And so I just think that just the fact of me like showing up would make them speechless, like those versions of myself.
Oh, that's so beautiful. I'm like so happy that you were open to sharing your story with us. Both the good, bad, ugly, and being real about it versus being like, oh, well, if I could do it, you could do it. I hate that kind of like personally, I don't love it because it's like, let's be realistic. Everyone's journey is going to look different. And I feel like you did such a good job of sharing that with us. I'll have your Instagram in the description for
Okay.
anyone who wants to follow you, reach out to you. Your business is in Colorado, right?
Yeah,
For brick and
Denver.
mortar.
Yeah, my med
And
spa,
then
yeah.
high ticket sales, that's online. So
Yeah.
they can do that. So I'll have your information in the description. And then everyone
Awesome.
like, subscribe, follow to I Love You But podcast. I'm on Instagram, TikTok, YouTube, Spotify, wherever you get your podcasts. Thank you so much, Sarah.
Yeah, thank you. This was great. Thanks for having me.